Alright, this is going to be, for all intents and purposes, the last video of this whole project. I'm just cutting it off here. There's a lot more improvements we can make to the game, but this glaring bug needs to be squashed for the game to really be playable here. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate what my bug is. And to do that, I'm going to grab my sentinels here, and I'm going to turn on my mesh renderer on their attack boxes, like so. So now when I play the game, you can see when their green attack boxes fire off. All right, so we're going through the game. Just making sure the windows are good. Reactivate my sentinels, and we're not seeing any kind of attack collision. Oh, there it goes, but there it's not there anymore. It's just kind of unreliable at best. Sometimes the green will stay up longer than it should. Look at that. The green's just staying up longer than it should. So whatever we kind of set up, maybe it might have worked for single character combat. But as soon as we add multiple enemies into the mix, our original script we had to activate our attack hitboxes just isn't cutting it anymore. So we're going to go at a new approach here. And it's going to be fairly easy, fairly painless. We're not going to have to change hardly anything at all. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of go in and just work with one character right now. And we're going to reset that enemy back to 0. We're just going to work with one for right now. All right. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete this Sentinel prefab on my spawn location. And I might as well apply that to the prefab. And we're just going to bring in a simple Sentinel from my prefabs down here that we were working with earlier. All right, what we need to do now is figure out another way for these attack boxes to become active or not. And I'm going to go ahead and turn these on. So that's the trigger, right? Become set active equals true, set active equals false. So instead of, I think what we were doing before is we were looking and seeing what current sprite was being drawn. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that spawner. It was all right. What we were doing earlier was we were just seeing right here what current sprite was being drawn. And then when we went into an attack state, we did a comparison to see which frame of animation we wanted our attack box to become active. And like I said, it's pretty reliable on one-on-one combat. It was working for us when we were testing it for that. No big deal here. But as we saw with multiple combatants, I think I said that right. It just wasn't working all that great. So what we need to do now is we need to figure out another way to get our attack boxes to fire off. For right now, I'm just going to deactivate my attack script. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a brand new script. And I've already got it made right here, but I think what we'll do is we'll make another one from scratch. I'm going to go ahead and bring up, let me bring up the old enemy attack. And what you'll find is a lot of the stuff that we did for enemy attack here, we're not really going to need anymore. But I made another script called enemy attack boxes. And instead, I guess I'll just go over what I made. So go ahead and make another script, and you can call it enemy attack boxes like I have. And this is all the code we're going to need to activate our attack boxes and deactivate our attack boxes. All right, so we're going to make our public game object. We're going to have a game object for our attack box 1, 2, and 3, like normal. And then we're going to make public functions, like so. And all these functions are going to do is set our attack boxes to true. And then we're going to have one public function that deactivates all of our attack boxes. All right, so that's pretty simple right now. But how are we going to get these functions to work? There's nothing even calling these functions. They're just there. They're not being used anywhere yet, right? Well, we're going to visit our animation window again. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to use our animation window to call these functions on our animation timeline. All right, so after you make your attack boxes script, I'm going to minimize here. Go ahead and go to your Sentinel sprite object under your parent Sentinel enemy. So the Sentinel sprite's where we got our sprite renderer and our animator window right here, right? So with that selected, let me clear this console. With that selected, why don't we attach our new enemy attack boxes to our Sentinel sprite script? All right. And then we're going to have to attach our attack boxes to our new script we just made. And now we're ready to start calling our functions. Attack box 3, set active true. These functions we're going to start assigning to our animation timeline up here. So you may have to reselect your Sentinel sprite game object. But here our animation window becomes active again. And we have this nice long list of animations. We're going to select attack 1. And we're going to scrub our slider until we get to the frame that makes contact with our player. And you see this little, let me zoom in real quick. You see this little add event button here? It looks like a little, I don't know, tab you would put, like a bookmark or something. We're going to use it. I'm going to go down here and I might start using that magnifier some more in the future. We're going to make an add event marker here. And right after it, we're going to make another add event marker. And now you can see these two little tabs here on my timeline. These two little bookmark tabs here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to double click one, and it's asking for a function. What we're going to do is, since this is attack 1, we want attack 1 function to be called whenever the frame of animation makes contact with our player. And right after it, we're going to double click it. We're going to deactivate our hitboxes. So the animation is going to play. It's going to activate our attack box and then immediately deactivate our attack box. And basically, we're just going to do that for the rest of our attacks here. So that's the contact frame with my foot fully extended, make an event, and right after it, make another event. And then we'll just click on them, double click. This time we're going to do our attack 2 function. And then we're going to deactivate right after. And same thing for attack 3. That looks to be about the contact frame there. And then right after it, another event. On the contact frame, let's call attack 3 function that we just described. And then right after it, we'll deactivate it. Be careful. Let me show you what can happen if you are too hasty with your clicks. You can accidentally, well, not that. If you're on the same frame and you accidentally create a second event, you'll see that it has a shorter little tag there. And this will crash your game because it'll be expecting a function attached to it, which we won't give it. So make sure you only have one little tab there and you don't have that second one little tab standing there. All right, so this, for all intents and purposes, should work. So what I need to go back and do now is go ahead and deactivate all my attack boxes. And I want to make sure all my mesh render stuff is still on. I'm going to select my Sentinel here. I'll just collapse it. And I'm going to go to my prefab options here in my inspector. And I'm going to hit apply. This will update my Sentinel prefab in my prefabs folder. And I'll just get rid of that Sentinel. And then I'm going to drag in a spawner that we created last lesson. And then I'm going to use my Sentinel prefab and parent that to my location. My enemy spawn location is looking for a enemy prefab to instantiate or activate, really, in this case, right? I think I might have forgotten to update that in the current build I'm working. No problem there. It still works. And now we should have a Sentinel that behaves like it should. So why don't we test what's going on here? I'm just going to double check and make sure that my attack box mesh renderer is on. It is. I'm going to go ahead and maximize on play. So as I'm walking in my level, now my animations on my timeline itself are driving my hitboxes, like so. And you'll notice my attack script isn't even turned on, but yet with kind of the logic we were using before, it still seems to work pretty good. He comes at us, he stops and attacks, and it's almost like all that work we did was for nothing. But that's okay, because when we were first building and prototyping our game, that was the most straightforward solution that I saw. So I just went with it and rolled with it. But later in the game development, when I started having multiple enemies on screen, it didn't work out so well. So I'm going to go ahead and update my enemy spawn location prefab. And here comes the real moment of truth here. I'm going to duplicate this, and now we're going to have 2 enemies to contend with. And we're going to see if their attack boxes work without fail. So here they come. And you can see I have both enemies attacking me now. Their attack boxes are firing off. It doesn't matter. So when they get back up, and there we go. Guaranteed enemy hit detection. Oh, I think I just killed my last enemy to win. All right, so that does it for this lesson. All we needed to do is just make sure that our attack boxes were activating. And when we found out they weren't, we figured out another way to call these attack boxes to set them to active. And it's really handy. You can see the power. You can see the power of sorry, that was my phone. You can see the power of the animation timeline when you use event animations like so. These little tabs are quite powerful when you have a script attached to your sprite renderer game object with all the functions you need. All right, so keep going with your game. If you see any things you may want to add, if you have any questions that you have, then just email me. But for all intents and purposes, if you cover everything in all the videos we've made, you fulfilled the project. If you want to add more UI elements, you can. If you want to clean up some of the bugs, maybe some of the floaty behavior of the enemies bugging you, you can. If you want to get your projectiles working really well, you can. So you guys have at it, and I know it was a lot of work, but it was a pretty complicated game to make. All right, thanks, guys.